This is the New New, our digital innovation podcast brought to you by Henkel Digital Business. Join us as we discuss digitalization with innovators from inside the company, startups, and partners around the world. In our current series, we focus on virtual work life and explore how different members of our community are responding to today's digital reality. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the New New. We continue our exploration of how different members of our extended Henkel community are contending with the new reality and at its epicenter, virtual working. So today I'd like to welcome our guest and our friend from Accenture, Christina Raab. Thank you for joining us, Christina.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Absolutely. Before we get into the nitty gritty and to the topic of our conversation, of course, I always ask our guests, now that there's an emphasis on virtual working and you might be working away from the office, whether at home or otherwise, has there been a new item in your new environment that has since become, let's say, a favorite object of yours?
Sure. It's actually not a new one. It's a pretty, a usual one. It's my headset. But I'm using that a lot now as I'm on phone conferences, video conferences, and also listening to music. So being at home, I listen to music. So this is my object to connect and disconnect with others. And this has become really a very essential part of my life. So losing it would not be an option now.
Absolutely. That's great. And I like that. It's both to connect and to disconnect. So I assume, listening to music, not just being on telcos, but trying to maybe reorient yourself. So, before even going into the idea of in your role with Accenture, how you're contending with the virtual working reality, I'd like to kind of piece into maybe you as an individual and how you're contending with the new landscape. So when it comes to disconnecting, right, and making sure that you're centering yourself, especially with this new working style, how do you go about doing that?
So I think what I discovered, I've been used to working in different places, different situations, but this permanent working from home is a challenge for me. So, what I see is really structuring the day becomes a new challenge. And I think what I need to be aware of is where do I organize for breaks?
Right.
And how do I So really set a fixed, maybe an hour or something where I really disconnect and say, now it's done. Because it's never done. You can always continue. If you start sending out emails at 9 o'clock, you will for sure get a response at 9:30.
Yeah.
So for me, this is really the main challenge. And what I'm trying to do is really have that breaks, not accepting calls. And then I'm doing a 1-hour walk every day. I'm trying to do my 10,000 steps as recommended. And I'm taking that to take a break.
Yeah.
And the beautiful weather, of course, makes it easy to go out and to disconnect and have a walk.
I assume your trusty headphones are with you on that walk, maybe?
They are. Though I really have to say that sometimes I'm also on calls.
Yeah.
I really have to be honest.
Well, I believe that's kind of the trade and the life of a consultant, no? So with that said, being someone who's such a leader within the Accenture community and a close partner, of course, to Henkel, can you describe how, in your role, maybe your approach to things has changed? We've already talked about maybe a shift in routine, for example. But as far as collaborating with your clients, Henkel or otherwise, what has changed thus far since following the extenuating circumstances with COVID-19, but also really addressing the future of working, which is virtual?
Yeah. And I think that's interesting because, as you said, we are now living through an extreme of working on site and then permanently from home. But I really believe that this is a time of change and a window of opportunity to change our working behavior in the future. So we have just made a survey with more than 3,000 people across the globe outside Accenture. And I think more than 30% confirmed that they will try to work more from home even after the COVID crisis. And this especially holds true for people who have never worked at home before. So the new starters that haven't had that experience before. So there is something in it. And I agree with you, there will be more virtual work in the future. And there are challenges, I think. Three come to my mind. The first one is really for as a leader in Accenture, and we're in a service business. So for us, it is vital to deliver to our promise and to understand the expectations of our clients. And not being on site on a regular basis puts a challenge. So we really have to make sure we continue to be connected on a regular basis to understand how we can best fulfill our promises. I would say that's one of the key topics and concerns. The second one is really, how do I make sure as a leader that my team stays connected and committed and understands a purpose? So we want to make sure that this working from home doesn't become a working in isolation situation. So there is all this effort around creating communities on a virtual basis. And then last but not least, and we already touched that, how do people members in my team find the right balance between connecting and disconnecting? How do we make sure we set up rules so that people can disconnect and have some private time and do not sit in front of their laptop all the time?
Right.
So I think that's the three main challenges I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of workarounds around those challenges, so there's going to be very novel and new things that appear in our landscape with working when it comes to whether it is because it was instigated by COVID-19, or whether it is just us looking towards the future and noting that remote working and virtual working is going to be more standardized, I think, as we move forward. With that said, what are the solutions that you found have worked for, let's say, working with your own internal team?
Yeah. And I think there are a couple. I think one of the most important things is turning on the camera. At least this is for me, it helps me to be focused on a conversation, but it also, I think, gives others the feeling that I care and that I am focused. So for me, this is really a key thing. So turning on the camera. For me, it's also important to have that initial conversation about how do you do? And it's in the real meaning of how do you do, not just as a small talk, but caring about the situation of people at home and whether they feel comfortable about the situation.
Yeah, agreed.
I then feel in a meeting as a leader, I also have to make sure much more in this virtual situations that the diversity of the team is considered. So there is people who speak up a lot and there is silent people. And this is due to cultural background, diversity, or gender diversity, all of that type. So I need to make sure as a leader that everyone is being heard and not just talked over. And this can happen in this virtual situation. And then I think last but not least, for me, I encourage the teams to take more prep time for this video conference situation, especially if we are doing unusual things like co-creating, design thinking virtually. So really asking them, be more focused in the meeting, but invest more time in preparing. Make sure the technology works. We have the right methodology, the tool, and we also have specialized facilitators in Accenture that do virtual facilitation for these workshops. And I think investing time in preparing makes virtual meetings a lot more efficient.
Absolutely.
And I think that's some of the things that have worked out quite well in this new situation.
Absolutely. I think there's something to be said about the time we have at the beginning of meetings, for example, where Margaret, you're on mute, we can't hear you, versus, just being ready, set, knowing the rules of the game. And it does bleed into that idea of prep work and making sure that you understand the tools and platforms that you're using to collaborate with partners. With that said, what has been maybe the most, let's say, most optimal or most impactful collaboration tool whether it's collaborating with your internal team or again, collaborating with some of your partners and your clients like Henkel?
Yeah. So I think there is a variety of tools. And I think we have a selection of tools we can pick from, and it's very much specialized on what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is it co-creation? Is it design thinking? Is it doing a quick vote? Is it about capturing emotions? So there is a lot different tools. But if I'd say the one tool that we are using, also collaborating with Henkel and other clients, is Microsoft Teams. I mean, this is the basis, the standard. It is solid, it's easy to handle, good quality. So this is our standard way of communicating with clients, and then we plug in the different tools based on what is needed.
Yeah, and as you know, Henkel has made that mass migration or transfer to the MS Teams platform, which has been great. So we're starting to really see the fruits of that particular effort and labor.
Yeah. And indeed, I think compared to other clients, and we realize this now as the work from home situation became a permanent one. So Henkel is very much advanced in the technical rollout of the tool for sure, compared to other companies, and especially the public sector. This is where we're seeing a lot of challenges. But then I think using it on an everyday basis, this is something that we all have to get some practice on. I think this is where we are right now. So technology works, I think.
Yep.
It's more ways of working and interacting.
I think it's really incorporating it into our day-to-day rituals. A tool is only as good as its user, to be quite frank. I think we're very much set up for success as far as our resources and the platform, the digital infrastructure, which is amazing and allows us and empowers us to work well. But to your point, it is really about that human element. Whether it's cooperating with your teams and the way you communicate, tone, gesture, everything definitely matters, maybe even more so. And that's why I think simple things like turning on the camera, it does humanize the situation, I think. So I think with that said, there were a lot of gems that you imparted there as far as recommendations, best practices, things that have worked with your team. Is there anything key that you would recommend to your clients, Henkel inclusive, that would help us to collaborate better, especially in light of virtual working?
I think that a bit the organizations are all, I think, the same challenges, the ones that we mentioned already. I feel what is key for every organization is being very structured in working virtually. Because this ensures it is efficient. And for me, efficiency is also a way of respecting time of other people. And I'm seeing that a lot, that a smooth conversation, virtual conversation, can be a lot of fun, but it needs to be well prepared. So I would recommend to everyone, be it on Henkel, be it in Accenture, be prepared. Make sure you know what you want to get out of a virtual meeting. And make sure that you understand what the contribution of every individual person on the call is. And I'm seeing that a lot, that a smooth conversation, virtual conversation, can be a lot of fun, but it needs to be well prepared. So I would recommend to everyone, be it on Henkel, be it in Accenture, be prepared. Make sure you know what you want to get out of a virtual meeting. And make sure that you understand what the contribution of every individual person on the call is. Yes. And make sure you handle the situation, you pause, you look at the chat, because I think that's also a very important thing to manage that. And take a breath, look at what's happening, go on. So there is no use to be hectic. It can be very structured and calm, and I think that can become a very good experience for everyone on a virtual interaction.
Sure, absolutely. Well, anything else you'd like to impart as we attempt to conclude our very insightful discussion? And again, we examine this from all perspectives, from the professional as well as the personal. So any maybe insights that you've gleaned as an individual during this time where virtual working is suddenly the directive?
I think, that what I realized is that working from home is great and I like it, but I like it a lot more to interact with people. So I'm really looking forward to meet you, Hankel guys, meet my team, have that personal interaction. In the office, in the Accenture office for one day, and I was really like looking around, who's there, really connecting, and it was so much fun of having that personal interaction. So to me, it became so much clear that I love my work because I love working with people and interacting with people and get a feeling of. And working virtually is a good substitute. But for me personally, I learned that I need that real interaction with people, and that I will have to learn in the future of how I invest my time and how precious the personal interaction is. And I think this will so much enrich the way we work to have that, virtual and real interaction. And I think that will give us a lot more opportunity to appreciate both. And I'm looking forward to that.
Couldn't have not said it better myself. So with that said, Christina, when everything hopefully resumes to what we call the normal, let's definitely grab a cup of coffee and talk about the gratitude we have to be able to have that conversation in person.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me once again. It's a great pleasure.
It was a great pleasure having you on. So we'll see you soon.